AH harassed and threatened an elderly man with dementia, trying to force him to testify against JD in brand new, unsealed filings that the public has never had access to before. A judge shut this down too, and now you can understand why AH never wanted these documents to ever get to you and I. I'm sure she wanted these burned up on reading, but you know what? You and I, we have them. We're going to be going over this stuff today too. Crazy times, huh? Crazy, crazy times indeed. So, hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day, by the way. I hope you are doing excellently. And if you're unaware, not too long ago, a judge unsealed 45 documents pertaining to the Virginia case. These things, they were hidden from public view. We're talking about 6,000 pages here. Many of these are bombshells. And many of these bombshells, oh, they make AH look bad. We are talking about really, really bad, to the point that AH and her lawyers thought, and the judge agreed, that this stuff, it could actually sway a jury. In fact, AH thought that this was so bad, it needed to continue to be locked down. But the judge said, nah, we're going to unlock this stuff. And this one, oh man, I mean, this is something else. Now, you notice, this is filed under seal, like I said, pursuant to the stipulated amendment protective order entered by the court on June 21st, 2021. And you'll notice, this is about excluding the deposition testimony of one Jacob Bloom. Now, when you look at this document, you can understand why AH would want this shut down, not only before the trial, but its aftermath as well. Why? Because they not only deposed a man with dementia, knowing full well that he did not have the capacity to answer questions, but they tried to trick him. They would ask him the same questions over and over again, even though he had to have his lawyer translate what was going on, because they hoped they could catch him in a slip up so they could weaponize that stuff. I mean, that is nasty. They were desperate too. I mean, if you thought that stuff looked bad at trial, if you thought those witnesses looked bad, you should have saw what happened before the trial if you didn't keep up with it. Stuff like this, it happened all the time. Listen to this here too. I mean, this is so nasty. And it explains who this guy is as well. So plaintiff and counterclaim defendant JD, by counsel and for the reasons set forth below, moved this court to exclude the deposition testimony of Jacob Bloom. AH's counsel has conducted discovery in an abusive manner. So you see how they're talking about this here. It's abusive and should be precluded from introducing certain utterly irrelevant and harassing evidence at discovery. So it's not just irrelevance that they're trying to add, it's them harassing somebody and doing it repeatedly. AH's counsel deposed JD's former attorney of 17 years. So there's who he is. If you don't understand who we're talking about, Jacob Bloom, 17 years working with JD, who is elderly and appeared not to be able to remember anything of significance. Bafflingly, even though Mr. Bloom's testimony was essentially a string of responses to the effect of, quote, I don't know, AH's counsel has designated his deposition trial or testimony for trial. Now, why would they do that, by the way? Because they want to be able to hurl accusations. They have somebody that can't remember that if they can actually mislead or deceive the jury into thinking that he's withholding. Not that he doesn't have the competency, but he's withholding in some way. Yeah, maybe, just maybe they can give something and they don't have any pushback or any backlash. I mean, that is ugly when you think about it. But Mr. Bloom's responses, they established, number one, he had nothing relevant to say. Number two, that he lacks competency to provide testimony on the issues involved. And number three, the blatantly harassing conduct of AH in this action. Number three, that really sticks out the most when we're talking about this. Again, you can understand why they filed this and they wanted it under protective order. The deposition testimony, it should be excluded. At the onset, The transcript makes it clear that Mr. Bloom lacked the ability at his deposition to testify in a competent manner, to recollect or communicate events, or provide substantive answers to questions asked of him. So from go, he couldn't understand what was going on. The parties were well aware that Mr. Bloom had been diagnosed with dementia. That is a key point in this to both parties. That includes AH's party. They were well aware that this guy could not answer questions. He had been diagnosed with dementia. Nevertheless, insisted on taking Mr. Bloom's deposition to discuss events that were beyond Mr. Bloom's capacity to recall. Again, he's not withholding, even though they would have made it look like that. He just didn't have the capacity because, again, and they knew it, he was diagnosed with dementia. It is clear from Mr. Bloom's testimony that he was unable to recall many of the questions posed to him. In fact, throughout the deposition, Mr. Bloom had the assistance of his attorney to guide him in understanding the questions and to provide an intelligible response. Throughout the deposition, Miss Heard's counsel harassed Mr. Bloom with the same question repeatedly in attempts to deceive him. So they're asking him stuff again and again. If you have ever dealt with somebody with dementia, you can understand how ugly something like this would be. Here's a question. When did you first meet JD? Here's an answer. I don't know when. I can't remember. So he can't remember anything that's going on. Do they accept that answer either? Oh, no, they don't. They go after him again and again. Look at this here. Does that help refresh your recollection of when you began representation, JD? Answer, no, it doesn't. It doesn't recall. You'll notice his speech pattern there. It doesn't recall. He seems confused. I don't recall. And I say it strongly to you. So he's telling them very much so. I say it strongly. I don't recall the particular cause of action, etc. Now they go after it again. Do you recall beginning representation, JD, in 1999? You see the objection roll in from Mr. Chu, by the way, asked and answered several times. Even though that comes in, he says, I don't recall. They ask yet again, I'm sorry, what is your answer, Mr. Bloom? I don't know. It's all confusing to me. It's confusing again, not because he's trying to get around something, but because, again, the man has dementia. Moreover, this continues, the substance of Mr. Bloom's deposition sought testimony regarding JD's previous litigations, which are completely immaterial to this action, so they tried to worm in something that has nothing to do with what the trial was about. Anyhow, even if that was not the case, Mr. Bloom did not recall much of the work he did for JD many years ago. should be precluded from exploiting, and this very much is exploitative behavior, Mr. Bloom, further at trial, where he does not have any knowledge of her allegations against JD, which is the only pertinent issue in this case. Again, weaponizing an elderly man with dementia, having to have a court tell you that this isn't the way forward, even though you know that this isn't the way you want to go. Yeah, that says plenty. Like I said, it says plenty about what these people are, what they represent, but also why these documents were sealed. They were sealed to protect them, because the jury looks at this, they think, oh, that is bad. But anyway, let me know what you think about this stuff. And as always, I appreciate the heck out of you too. You make this stuff work. Thank you. I can't say that enough. Want to help out the channel, by the way. There are links in the description. They always help out. But you being here helps out most of all. Thank you. Appreciate you. Share this far and wide, by the way. Definitely need your help on that. But you being here, that is the biggest help of all. Thank you. Appreciate you. End it here. See you soon.